Moments with God, a time of reflection for every day.
May 25th, taught by the Lord. And all thy children shall be taught of the Lord, and great shall be the peace of thy children. Isaiah 54:13. The old story of a rebellious nation is compared to that of a helpless woman who had no help, who had no way to live, and God gathered her to be a great country. Israel was the chosen people, which for centuries was the scene of prophets, kings, priests, and the very presence of God in their midst. However, they believed themselves better than the others. They abused the privileges that the Lord granted them, and they became rebellious toward their Savior. Time and time again, like a tender father, the Lord sought them out, healed their wounds, fed them, sent them messages of admonition. But after a reform that was in Israel, a greater apostasy came. That is, the nation became more rebellious, an inverted trait that they did not allow themselves to be guided by the Lord. They did not accept His advice. They did not listen to their prophets, until God Himself delivered them into the hands of their enemies, and they were plundered. Their city destroyed, their temple burned, and their walls devastated. What they did not learn in times of peace, they learned in times of distress. For in Babylon, on the banks of the river, they wept for their lost homeland, and hanging their harps on the willows, they humbled themselves before the Lord, asking forgiveness for their sins. Of course, God's promises were not lacking, and through previous prophets it had been announced that His people would return to Jerusalem in a few decades, that they would be restored, that their city would be saved, would be built, that there would be vineyards and orchards, and above all, His children would learn the fear of God, because God Himself would be the instructor. Of course, God had been their instructor at all times, but they had been rebellious to listen to them. However, after having exasperated, they were willing to listen to the Lord and to put into practice His commandments. For being instructed by the Lord means listening to the voice of God. It implies obedience, and it is more than being gathered in a place of worship. It is a practice of the truth that is known. Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scorners, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in His law he meditates day and night. Oh, how I love your law, says the psalmist. Well, of course, when we are sensitive to the voice of God, when we allow ourselves to be guided by the Lord, love for His commandments awakens in us. Well, we can all be instructed by the Lord. The condition is that we are humble to accept His admonitions, that we are willing to render obedience to Him. Then our peace will be like that of a calmly flowing river. The prophet Isaiah declared, "Your children will be taught by the Lord, and the peace of your children will be multiplied." Well, when there is respect for the Lord and the family, all things go well. When children learn what fidelity to God's commandments is, nothing can separate them from the love of Christ, and they will always want to honor Him even if they are far from their parents. Therefore, we must instruct the family in justice. God's law must be the norm of their home. God will not come to perform miracles in us if we neglect our duties as parents. God will not come to show us the way if we are blind to the light. We have to see it. There will be no new messages of revelation if we set aside His commandments. Therefore, our disposition is essential for God's instruction, to take us to higher levels. Let us learn to have the fear of God, honor the Lord in these times of peace, and prepare our lives for the day of the Lord's return. Amen.
Thank you for listening to this audio. We invite you to share with your contacts and visit the website BibleWell.com.